everyone, if you would put your hands together to welcome our moderator, Peter Soutullo.
Hey guys, welcome to the hand lettering workshop. I have the pleasure of introducing Dina, full-time hand letterer, graduate of the DAD Digital Arts and Design program, 2010. So, also a former student of mine, so it's pretty awesome to see her come up here. From Portland, Oregon, Dina Rodriguez.
What's up, guys? First of all, holy crap, you guys are lucky. You're gonna learn some letters with me today. It's gonna be crazy awesome. I'm so thankful to have this opportunity from Full Sail. I was completely in shock and awe. They're like, hey, Dina, do you want to teach a hand lettering workshop? I'm like, duh. I'm into that. I love letters. Don't know if you guys know that. So before we get started, even though they said no laptops, you can have your laptops out for this presentation. I actually encourage it. There is a copy of this presentation on my website. So if you guys do go to lettershop.com, that's L-E-T-T-E-R, shop spelled the cool way, shoppe.com/HOF for Hall of Fame. You guys can actually sign up to get a copy of this presentation. So there's going to be a ton of stuff, guys, we're going to cover today. If you've never hand lettered anything in your life, or if you're a little bit more skilled, this is really something for everyone. We're going to go from beginners to intermediate to a little bit of advanced for tomorrow's workshop. There's a lot to cover, so I wanted to make sure you guys had all the notes and everything you could possibly need, even after I'm back in Portland, Oregon. So I'll give you guys just a few minutes to kind of clickety-clack. You guys can also go on your phones if that's helpful for you. I'm okay with it. Please screen it up for me. I don't. So, all right, guys. So this is, I'm not sure, can you guys see my screen? I couldn't see it. Okay, great. So this is what the landing page looks like. So go ahead, put in your first name and then your email address. And also what you're signing up for is weekly articles on hand lettering. So if you guys want even more information, you guys get it on the weekly every Sunday. I also teach hand lettering workshops live on twitch.tv. So you're gonna get all my information. So once you guys sign up, you'll be directed to the main presentation. And again, that's lettershop.com/HOF, Hall of Fame, to sign up. And then once you guys are rocking and rolling, this is our page. So day one, hand lettering workshop. So before we even get started, I have something really exciting to tell you guys. We're having a design contest. So you guys, you can either choose to work on the same piece that I'm going to use for this presentation, or you can choose to make your own hand letter quote, digitalize it, and whoever has the best design gets a few things. The winner, first of all, gets their piece printed on an 18 by 24 screen printed poster, courtesy of Mama Sauce, so you know it's going to be looking fresh and so clean. And also, you guys are going to be getting this kit. I'm Oprah right now. So there's about $100 worth of stuff in this piece. I did custom make the pencil case, the art of hand lettering. You guys get field notes, micron pens, pencils, erasers. I think there's even an additional sketchbook that I made that says 26 letters, endless possibilities. And both the first place winner and the runner-up get this kit. But only the winner gets the poster printed. And I don't know if I mentioned this, but the whole class gets one. So everybody who's here physically, you're getting a poster. You're getting a poster, and you're getting a poster, and you're getting a poster. All right, guys, so let me get into my spiel. So just so you don't know, oh, we have an Insta question. What's up? It's lettershop.com/HOF. No problem. Real quick before we get started. It's down? You guys crashed my website. Gosh darn it. Well, if you later bookmark it, you'll be able to get access to it. If you do sign up for it, it's going to be available forever. I'm not going to take it down, so if it did crash, luckily I'm not going to hit refresh on this page so we can actually see this presentation. That sucks. I knew I should have called my hosting company. Well, next time. Tomorrow we'll get this fixed up for you guys. All right, so let me get into me. This is me. I like to color my hair every few months. So my name is Dina Rodriguez. I'm a full-time hand lettering artist from Portland, Oregon. I draw letters for a living. Up to about 6 months ago, I've been doing this full-time, was able to say, bye job, bye corporate America, I'm going to do my own thing for a little bit. And I'm very proud, and it took a lot of work to get to that point. 4 years of just working that midnight oil and just really busting my balls during lunch breaks and at night and in every spare moment I had just drawing letters. I found a lot of inspiration from Sean McCabe. Also, SeanWest.com is my idol of hand lettering. And he really taught me a lot of the basic terms and terminology that kind of helped me shape the skeletons of my letters and actually showed me the do's and don'ts of hand lettering. So if you guys even want more free information, I highly recommend going to Sean West, that's SeanWes.com. He has a free beginner's workshop. It's amazing. You guys will learn way more than you're going to learn here today because I couldn't fit it in the 90-minute slot that we got going on today. And it's just so much plethora of information. The internet's an amazing place. Just to kind of show you guys where I started, about 4 years ago, this is kind of where I was at talent-wise. I was lettering pretty much every day, just practicing with every style I could get my hands on, cursive, sans serif, script, pretty much everything, just trying to figure out, like, who am I, what do I want to look like, what's going to be my style. And now, this is a little flavor of the pieces that I do now. I do a lot of custom logo marks, is one of my favorite projects, a lot of commercial hand lettering for advertisements and publishing, pretty much anything. If it's got words on it, call me, and I will make you some swank lettering. All right, guys, another thing, and I mentioned this briefly, is I am on Twitch. Twitch is an amazing live streaming platform. It was originally made for gamers, but the creative section recently blew up in the past few months when Adobe actually started sponsoring this website. I live stream my process 3 to 5 times a week for 3 hours a day. So if you guys need more lettering and more Dina, you can hang out with me pretty much all the time. So if you want to stalk me, please do. All right, so let's get started. So we're going to do a lot of lab in today's session. I'm going to just kind of talk at you for a little bit, and I'm just going to hope that a lot of this information just hits you and resonates, and then eventually you guys have your hand lettering worksheets in front of you, where we're actually going to practice learning some of the more difficult letters. And just so you know, we are going to be focusing on all capital letters, sans serif. So kind of like Helvetica, but a little cooler because it's handmade. All right, so for you type nudes, we are going to go over just the basic terminology of a lot of things I'm going to be saying in this class. The biggest things being baseline is the bottom height of your letters. So we have this example from Sean West, pretty much where your lines rest. And then the cap height, self-explanatory, the type of your caps. And your X height, we're going to talk about your stems, which are pretty much all of your vertical lines, and your crossbars, which are your horizontal. So if anything I say goes over your head, just refer back to this little diagram, and you'll be like, oh, that's what she meant. Okay, I get it now. So one thing we're going to be talking about today is different weights of our letters. So a lot of people feel like they need to cram every single style in a piece all at once, and you guys should really only be sticking to at least 2 or 3 styles, and that includes weight. So today, since we're only going to be focusing on sans serif, I want you guys to play with condensed. I want you to play with just simple, like, skeleton of your letters, bold, black, all of that stuff. I want to see the possibilities of your brains right now. Now, we're just going to dive right in and talk about the do's and don'ts of lettering. So we're going to get right into it and do some hand warm-ups. Now, just like going to the gym, you got to warm up those legs and those arm muscles and get those things a-wiggling and a-jiggling. You got to do the same things with your hands. There's a lot of muscles in your hands, guys. And if you don't warm up, you'll get cramps. After maybe an hour of lettering, you'll not want to do it anymore, and I want you guys to letter as long as possible. So first thing we're going to talk about is the ball and release, and I want you guys to do this with me. Ready? So like a fist, like you're going to punch someone, but you know, nice. And we're going to kind of squeeze for about 10 seconds, and then release. And then squeeze, and then release. And just do that a few more times. This is going to open up your hands. And now we're going to do the thumb touch. So pretty much hand up. So let's do both hands. Your thumb with your pointer finger, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. This is really good for hand-eye coordination. It's telling your brain, hey, wake up, brain. It's time to draw some letters. And then we have the claw stretch. Now, this is supposed to be pointed towards you, but I'm going to face towards you so you guys can actually see what I'm doing. So this is towards you. You just kind of do this. And now we're going to shake it out. We're having a girly fight right now. happened? No. All right, now side to side. Like, it's like a cool dance move. I call it the shake it out. Awesome. Put your hands down. All right, we all awake now? All right, so let's get right into it. So one mistake that I see a lot of hand lettering artists makes is they keep stretching their lettering. They'll make it, they'll create it, they'll put it in Photoshop, and since they haven't figured out kerning quite yet, they'll just stretch the letters. And that's really bad because you have to keep consistency with your letters. You can't just stretch it out. You should, if you are going to stretch it out in Photoshop, print that sucker out and redraw it. So that way your weights are consistent. And if you look at this diagram, we have our original W, and then the second W, which is obviously crossed out, has been stretched. And as you can tell, it thickens the letters. And usually when you're going to be cutting out your letters individually, you don't want your letters to have inconsistent line weights and one be thick and one be thinner. It's a really big mistake that I see all over Instagram and Pinterest. Now, one thing too is to make your work, that's not a word, make your work look good optically. Now, the importance of that is mostly when we talk about rounded letters, which also are letters that have a bowl in it, like a C or an O or an S. Now, the thing with lettering and typography specifically is there's no mathematical perfect solution. There's a lot of things that you have to do that's more important for it to be optically correct than for it to actually align to a grid. So a few of those lines in the paper we're just going to completely ignore. Now, what I mean by that is, like, let's take the letter O, for example. Depending if you guys can actually see this, there is a little tiny red line above my cap height, and because the O has extra negative space around the aperture of the letter, it actually creates more room, and if you did have the O like directly on the grid, it would technically look smaller than the rest of your other letters, so you have to kind of compensate and kind of go a little bit above and below the baseline. In any letter that's completely curved is when you have to do this, like C's and O's and also S's. But don't confuse it with B's. Like a B technically has a bowl in it, that's fine. That can chill on the grid. It's just anything that's rounded on the top or bottom. Another thing we're going to talk about is consistency. A lot of people get confused when they're playing with different varieties of their letters. They don't think about the difference of thins and thicks. Now, if you notice, there's a little diagram that I drew on the bottom. And depending on my contrast, you can notice that I circled the stroke going down and then downward diagonal. This diagram is teaching you what letters are thick and what letters are thin. So any letter that goes down and to the right is thick. Any other direction, if it's horizontal, up, or diagonal horizontal, needs to be thin. And we're going to go over this more when we actually start writing out our letters, and I'm going to be repeating it a few times. Now, the same thing goes for, we have what I like to call varied width. So this ABC obviously has a very thick to thin ratio, where it's just a line and then it's really thick. Now, the same rule applies when you're trying to do mono-weight lettering, which are letters that are all supposed to optically look the same weight. So technically, the stem of my B and the curve of my C are a little bit fatter. As you go down, a little bit fatter, and then as you go up, it thins out. Just like a smidge, just like a little bit. Now, we're just going to talk about more mistakes that people make. So the trick with diagonal lines. As you can see, we have the wrong way to draw something like the letter N and then the right way. So remember, these two stems, this goes down. You would think it's thick, but no, because you would actually start from the bottom left of your letter. So you would actually technically go up. So always start from the bottom right of your letters, always, even if you're left-handed. Bottom left technically goes up, so you know it goes up, thin, down for the slash, thick, up, thin. And the same thing with the W. Most people just do the outside, like the Weezer logo kind of style. That's technically incorrect. It needs to be parallel lines. So thick, thin, thick, thin. Same thing with the letter M. All right, you guys ready to draw some letters? Are you guys ready to draw some letters? Yes! Thank you. I have 30 minutes of sleep. I need you guys. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just bust out Photoshop, and we're going to start drawing some letters. I think this isn't plugged in, so let me do that. I feel so unprepared. Awesome. So I pulled up my Photoshop document, and I upped my lights, because these lights make this a little harder to see. Now, I'm going to be the first person to tell you that I am not good with a Wacom tablet. Like, not good. But it should be able to illustrate kind of the main structure that we're doing. And I'll go back and forth between the presentations so you guys can kind of follow through. So first, I'm going to describe what I'm doing, and I want you to do your best as I'm talking to actually try to follow the instructions, and then we'll do it a second time when I'll do it with you. Safari. Okay, so when we're building our letters, just so you guys know, there's a big difference between lettering and calligraphy. Lettering is technically the illustration of letters, so it takes multiple strokes, and you have to erase, redo it, erase, redo it, where calligraphy is more like handwriting, where it's just one stroke and you're done. Once you lift that pen, beautiful, end of story. So it's okay to make mistakes. If you guys want to redo it a few times, that's perfectly fine. Erase, you're just starting out. It's not going to be perfect. So as we're drawing this A, we would start from the bottom left, and we're going to start out with the skeleton of our letters, guys. So pretend there's a pen here, right? So bottom left, up, triangle, to the top, to the cap height, to your first line, and then down, end of stroke. And then the crossbar. The crossbar doesn't go perfectly in the vertical center. It actually goes a little bit lower. And if you want more of a vintage look, go a little bit lower with your crossbars for that 1920s perfect vintage that I'm so obsessed with, if you look at my portfolio. So draw that crossbar, basic A. Now, how we're going to add weight to that, it really depends if you want the A to have a point at the apex or if you want it to have a cap. If you want it to be pointed at the top, you would go from the inside of your letter, so we have the outside, the inside of your letter, and then go down to add the weight. And then you have a thick and thin ratio A. And then I'm just going to draw it for you guys. I was like, why is it backwards? Hold on. I was like, that's weird. Okay. Mr. Cord. Yeah. I'm a righty, guys, so if you guys are lefties, I'm sorry. Boop, boop. Let's go for 14 point. Yeah, perfect, beautiful. Now, these letters are going to get harder. You guys are like, oh, okay, letter A, no big deal. Just wait for it. All right, and I'm nervous, so we got the jiggly jags. So bottom left to the top of the apex, down. And then this would technically, right here, be the vertical center. We go a little bit lower for the crossbar. And then to add weight, inside, boop. Gorgeous. Gorgeous. And I'm actually just going to do the second A. Now we're going to add mono weight. So same thing, start with the skeleton of your letters. Same thing we did the first time. Then add the crossbar, a little bit lower than the vertical center. Now, instead of going on the inside of the A, we're going to go on the outside of the A. So we're going to start from this top, the peak, also known as the crotch. It's a real typography term, guys. Add our thickness, and then go down. Boop. Add our little cap there at the bottom. And now we're going to go from the furthest right top point and add weight to the other side. And then keep in mind that these two downward strokes should be thicker than your crossbar. So your crossbar is just going to be a little bit thin, even though it's supposed to appear to be the same weight. So just a subtle change. Like normally I'd go right here. I'm just going to go a little bit higher. Boop. And we have the letter A. Now, I'm just going to draw it again, just in case someone was like, oh, pen, paper, I don't know what to do, so many words. Okay, we're going to do it one more time. This time, we go a little bit faster. Add weight to the furthest right point. Make this one a little bit thinner. Forgot. I'm sorry, Mom. My mom's here, by the way. Can I get that parent hype? Mom's like, oh, this is what you do for a living. I see. So I actually skipped a section. I actually was supposed to do my crossbar before I had my weight. I got ahead of myself, so sorry, guys. All right. A. You guys love my Wacom skill right now? Perfecto mundo. All right, guys, letter B. So now we're going to repeat that same process with the letter B, but with a few exceptions since this letter has 2 bowls in it. And we actually have the drawing steps. So same thing, you're going to start with the stem and go down. And then the first bowl, so both these bowls aren't actually the same width. So your top bowl is going to be, go ahead and draw a line exactly at the vertical center for me. And now you guys, that first bowl is just going to go a smidge above the vertical center. And then that bottom bowl is going to be obviously bigger than the top bowl and then also a smidge wider. So like, let's say the top bowl's here, your bottom bowl should be like right here. This is for the letter B to appear balanced. So we have our top bowl, and then our bottom bowl should be like that. I'm actually going to just draw it for you. I think that's the best way to go. I just want to see, like, I can actually draw letters, promise. All right, so let's draw our skeleton, and then I'll show you guys how to add weight. So like, let's say this is the vertical center. Boop. It's a smidge. Then this is our line here. So this other line should be like right there. Now, there's a bunch of different styles of bee. It's a gorgeous bee, like the most beautiful bee I've ever drawn. It's cool. We have Command Z. Not on paper. For me, guys. I'm trying to look professional. All right, B. We did it. Okay. So now we're going to add weight to the stem first. And we're going to go, since this is going to be varied weight, we're going to go from the inside. Boop. Now here's the trick. Just like I said, the letter C, anything that goes down should be technically thicker. And then so when you start, it needs to just be very thin, like the line. And then as you go down, add thickness. And then as you go back horizontally, thin again. So let me show you. So I'm actually just going to do something like this for varied weight. And we'll do it a little bit differently for mono weight. B. All right, let's do it again. Start with that skeleton. Let me actually follow my own advice. I'm getting to perfection mode right now. Damn it. Photoshop. Okay. You guys get the picture. All right. Now, if we went on the inside to add weight, the aperture or the negative space between our letters would be too small. So we're going to go on the outside, just like how we did with the A. So instead of on the right side, we're going to go to the left side. Now, a big mistake that I see people make is they do this for their Bs. Don't copy this. Don't do this, okay? So they'll do something like this. Did that make you mad? It makes me mad too. Okay, so your two bowls meet should be on the same line. It's not double line all of a sudden. No. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to do two little lines above and below this crossbar on their B. So we're going to go right here. Boop, boop, and treat that as our center point. And then we're going to do this, and then connect them. Boop. Now note, and I'm doing this naturally, just professional. So again, you notice how when it goes down, it's still somewhat thicker than it is in the top, even though it's supposed to appear to be the same weight. Now you can go subtly with this. You can go a little bit more drastic, like what I'm doing, just to show you guys as an example. But any style is great, just as long as it has that ratio and that contrast. And let's do it for the bottom bowl. Sometimes it helps me to add little lines before I'll go ahead and finish it. Like, oh, where's my pen gonna stop? B. You're so pretty. All right, let's do it again. Let's see if I can do a better B on a Wacom tablet. Challenge accepted. Stop laughing at my jokes, Mom. Other people are supposed to laugh at my jokes. All right, guys, adding weight again. The more times you guys can repeat this process, the better. I feel like this B is already better. B for better. All right, I'm I'm going to add my lines here, do myself a little favor, little divots. Boop. And I went too high, so I'm just actually going to do this. Boop. 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 Oh, gorgeous. Right? B for beautiful. And also, this presentation is a little bit awesome, and when my website isn't crashed, you guys can zoom in and actually get in the details. Now we're going to get to the letter C. Now, since this letter has just one large bowl, we're going to do what we talked about earlier and go a little bit above and a little bit below the baseline. We don't want to go crazy with the space, guys. I'm talking like minuscule. Like it's so tiny I can't even like physically show you. And then, All right, next line. All right, now I'm actually just going to draw a box here to show you guys. Say this is the container where my C is going to go. You can either do one of two things. You can either A, have the letter C, the width of it be exactly the same, like this. So notice that those two curves of the C actually go to the same place. Or, I love that I can just Command Z, that's so helpful. You can actually have the top stem go a little bit further than the bottom, but you can never have the bottom go out further than the top, or else your C is going to look like it's fallen over. It's going to look drunk. We don't want drunk lettering, guys. So undo my box here. Just draw the wireframe. And then again, a little bit above the baseline, just like tad like that. Now, depending if you want a condensed letter or if you want a more oval letter, really obviously determines on your width of your letters. And then if we're going to go with varied spacing, same thing, it's going to be a line, and then as we start to go down, we add the weight. So it would only be here. All right, now let's do it again. Squiggle central. It's because you're watching me. That's what's happening right now. Grr. You guys having problems? I'm having problems. Okay, cool. C, we did it. Now, we're literally just going to go. Now, something to keep in mind is the caps of our C are not straight. They actually are diagonal. So let's just go ahead and add those caps. Diagonal pointed towards each other. And then just add the weight. And then remember, thin to thick. So this would be just slightly thicker. Go a little bit slower. Here, I'll do it better on the bottom. So it'd actually be like that. Bad letter. Like that. Now, if at any point during this presentation I go too fast or you have a specific question, please just shout, just like raise your hand or make like a snap sound so I can look up and I will answer it. Now is the time for questions. All right. Now, we're actually not going to go through the whole alphabet today because I really want you guys the opportunity to create your own letters, and I'm going to walk around along with a few instructors just to kind of help you. Because I really want to have this be really hands-on, so that way when we come into tomorrow's workshop where we're actually going to go into Photoshop and vectorize our letters, your lettering should be at a good phase. So now we're going to talk about P and R, which are pretty similar. The only difference is a leg from the R. So when drawing the letter P, it's important to not confuse it with the letter B, since the upper part of the B would be way too small. So just because, like we said, remember, a little bit above the vertical center for that top bowl of the B, not the P, not the same thing. You actually want to go directly at the vertical center or a little bit below, depending on, again, the vintage look that we talked about. So you draw your stem, and then either vertical center or a little bit below. I feel like I'm going to be so good at the Wacom tablet by the end of the session. It's going to be amazing. Stem of the P. Now this will not, even though I'm kind of going above my lines here, it doesn't go above the cap height. So this is my vertical center. Put a little dot there for me. Boop. Now that's a good looking P. All right, guys. Now again, we're going to go from the inside for varied width. Go a little bit thinner because I didn't make my bowl too huge. So, and then again, as you go down on the bowl of the P, add weight. Now I think our next P, I'm actually going to go a little bit lower. Again with the stem. It's kind of a straight line. Crazy P. And then when we add weight, so mono weight, again from the outside instead of the inside. Cap it off. Boop, boop. And then again, thin to thick ratio, don't forget. Now that's a P. Put this out a little bit more. Now, when you guys do eventually go into serifs and all the different adding the little feats to our letters, it's really important, and I'm just going to go over this once since we're not going to go too much into serifs, but I think it's important to note, is draw your letter completely first, and then you add the serif. So if we go for a flat serif, I would just take my line, just do this, and then add it. A lot of people do this. Don't do this. First of all, they won't draw the wire from their letters, and they'll just draw the outside like bubble letters, like from middle school, and they'll do this. Don't do this. First of all, this might turn out cool because I'm, whatever, professional, but but it's still like, why is that the best P that I drew? Don't do that, though. Seriously, don't do that. Mom liked that one. All right, let me undo these serifs. All right, now we're going to do it again, just like we would for the letter P for the letter R. So let's just get right into it. Boop, 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 boop. Same thing. The bowl go in the same place. And then the leg, a trick. A lot of people do this. No. Okay. For a second, I was like, did the screen go black? Like, you get the negative reaction I got. You were like, no. All right. So a good trick is you can either just put the leg out a little bit further, or you can actually use this top left corner. Yeah. Did I just blow your minds right now? Dude. Old school artist in the house. Just taught her new tricks. All right. Let's add our leg. So with the R, it's really important when you're adding weight to always make sure that there's a little gap right here. Because even when people start to add weight, then a lot of people will put the inside line here. Still incorrect. We go a little bit further. So let's go ahead and add our weight for varied width first. Always going to be varied width, guys. Boop. Then again, downward. And then our leg. Now, I can have this come out here, which we still rewrite, but for me, I'm actually going to use that as a middle line. So I'm actually going to do this. Just I think that looks a little bit better. Yeah. Okay. Let's do it again. Stem down. Boop. Let's do our bowl. Our leg. Eyeball it from the top left corner, or you can draw a line. It's pencil, it's cool. Again, instead of going the inside, we're going to go the outside. Cap it off. I'm going to add little marks, little dots, where I'm going to put my inside lines just so I can make sure it stays consistent. Boop, boop. And if you want, you can even add a line here. Boop. Just so you can visually make sure that you have that thin to thick ratio down. Now, once you guys get the basic forms of your letters, then you can start having some serious fun with it. Like, hold on. I love R's. My favorite thing to do with R's is do this, like underneath another letter. If you look at any of my posters, I'm like all about it. I'm just like, yes, swirls everywhere. But let's get our leg in there first. Great. Boop. See, look how good that R is. Love it. All right, now we're going to do the G. And my thick one is actually a little bit off. I actually live streamed my process doing this presentation on Twitch. And I was like, you know what? I feel like I could be a little imperfect with this, make you guys feel better. It's all for you. All right, you're welcome. All right, so just like the C, we're going to go a little bit above and below our baseline for the G. Boop. Start with the C. And then we're going to go up. And then most people, you can either do it at the vertical center, or you can go a little bit lower. I like to go lower for the little arm here. And the arm should never extend past the center of your C. So this is weird. Don't do that. Actually, I think even like that would probably be even better, depending on how modern you want your piece to look. Now to add weight, same thing. Only add weight inside, going down. And just to make sure, and I'm not sure if I touched on this, I don't think I did. So to have better control, guys, over your pen, always pull towards you. Because when you pull up, you actually have less control. So if you need to physically turn your paper, that's totally fine. And we'll actually make, when we get into the letter O, it's going to be super helpful because O's are hard. And S's are the worst. Just wait for it. S's are like, ugh, I have nightmares about S's. They just do this to me in my sleep. It's the worst. All right, guys, so we're going to go ahead and make this thick. So again, this is the stroke. Anything that goes down is thicker. And then our little arm would just stay thin. Here, I'm going to go ahead and just, that was the coolest noise ever. Here, I'll do it. Like, I made a weird noise, too. It's cool. Don't worry about it. I know, but mine was more embarrassing. We're all friends here, guys. Okay, so let's go ahead and draw our G again. I'm going to do it without the line just so I can make sure these G's are back to back for you. Make it a little bit. Oh, so professional. All right, guys. Ooh. Same thing. Let's go a little bit higher. Boop. Now, similar to how we did the C, again, the cap is diagonal, not straight. Diagonal line. And then I'm going to do a little line to make sure it goes thicker. Bless you. See, that was a normal sneeze. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. You guys are going to tweet. It's going to be great. I think just R-E-R-E-R-E. Re. Guys, I'm not your Google, okay? Only for lettering. All right, so this is thin. And then this would be thick. Even though it's just a slight downward, it's still thicker. And then as we reach the center of the aperture of the negative space of this bowl, it gets thinner. This is the weirdest G I've ever done. Hold on. Let's make you just gorgeous for a second. There we go. And then also, if you notice, like, this G is a little bit too condensed for me, you could always just, boop, make it a little wider, fix it. Not a calligraphy artist. It usually takes a lot of erase and redraw for me. You got this, Mom. Okay. All right, I hate that G so much, I'm just gonna. Okay, I'm going to blow your mind again with the K. You ready? All right, so there's a lot more to the letter K than meets the eyes, guys. And the bottom leg doesn't go where you think it does. Only a few more letters left, and then we're going to get into composition, the real nooks and crannies of lettering, guys. Boop. So K, again, stem, skeleton always, even if you feel like you're just amazingly professional and you got it down, start with your skeleton, you're going to thank your future self later. All right, okay. Oh, right. So I always like to go a little bit above the vertical center for our upward arm. So I think my vertical center would probably be a little bit there, I think. And then same thing with the R. Boop. Mind blown. It's like, Dina, you already told us that. No, reblow it. Reblow it up, guys. All right. As long as your brains are just everywhere. Anyone who watches this live is going to be like, what is she doing? She just keeps talking to the audience. Like, what is the audience saying? Sorry, live guys. Yep. I don't know. All right, guys. We're going to go ahead and, let's see. So I made this a little bit not as wide, so I actually am going to go on the outside. Now, I always think these Ks look like funky, but they are technically correct, where this would have weight. This top arm wouldn't, because it goes up, and remember, we only do it when we go down or diagonally down. And then this would be, and then always remember, there needs to be a spot right here. So I almost did it. My brain wanted to hit that grid, and as a designer, you loved your lines and your grids, and you want to follow it, but no, 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 no. That's the professional term. No, 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 no. Yeah.
Can you ever reverse it, instead of the stuff that goes down is larger and up is thinner? Can you reverse it for different types of lettering?
No, you never reverse it unless you want messed up lettering. Well, see, now the reason why we make them thin and thick isn't for style, and it's like, oh, one dude out there was like, this is the right way to draw letters. It's more like readability. Because when you start to change up the downward strokes and the thickness, it gets really, like what I like to say, globbly-glooky, and it just gets really mushy. So unless it's just one, if it's just one letter really huge, then maybe you probably get away with it. But let's say you're building a typeface, for example, or you have a lot of words in a poster, it's going to bleed in really, really horribly, and then if you're trying to sell it or if you're giving it to a client, they're going to be like, something's wrong with this, but I can't put my finger on it. It's because of the inverted thin to thick ratio. So this is supposed to be like a straight line. Okay, there we go. I think it looks so good. It's like it's got eyeliner on. Okay, let's do it again, guys. Stem, a little bit above the vertical center for the arm. And then the leg, you can use that top left corner to go down. And remember, when you're drawing that arm, pull towards you. I know it makes you want to do this. You're going to lose control, always towards you. Now, different hand lettering artists have different tactics. I personally think it's much, much easier to pull towards you, always. I think Sean West always likes to do straight lines away from him, and then he pulls curved lines toward him. Just experiment and see what works best for you. But as a beginner, I would definitely recommend just always pull towards you. You're going to save so much heartache on your hand because you're just going to be pushing away. Just think of it not in seconds it takes to draw the arm, but the hours where you're repeatedly making that same incorrect motion. All right, we're going to go the outside. Now, instead of me building on top of this, I'm actually going to use these lines as my center. Pretend that's a straight line. There we go. Yeah, okay. Okay. Has everyone got that? Yep. Sweet. All right, guys, I think we only have 2 letters left. So we have the 2 hardest letters, the letter O and the letter S. Now, for the O, because just like the C, you have to overshoot both the cap height and the baseline. And you have to do like an oval within an oval. Like obviously, if you want something more condensed and something that looks a little bit more vintage, you want to go more oval. If you want something to look modern, you always want to round out your letters. So really depending if you want like Helvetica versus something a little bit more custom. Let's get to Photoshop. All right, let's see how great I can draw a circle. All right, so like I said, always try to pull toward you. So I typically don't like flipping my canvas. But yeah, you would just turn your paper and do it in quarters. So quarter, turn, quarter, turn, quarter, turn. So you're just technically doing the same motion 4 times while turning your paper. Just try it. Just you know, see if it's easier. If you like to do this better and move your wrist, that's great. It's really whatever you feel most comfortable with. I find when I first started out, turning my paper made a huge difference. Obviously, the first time you try something new, it's gonna come out weird. So just keep practicing. So for my O, I actually will do dots and set my weight. And that's not, it's gonna be a really wide O. There we go. And some people will actually do this. It really depends on like just how bad you are at drawing circles. Let's just assume you're really bad at it. And then just all right, connect the dots. You guys got cute O's? Good. Because if you're gonna make O's, they better be cute. All right, so we have our basic skeleton. Now keep in mind, guys, and just, I know I'm like really chatty, but like let's try to keep the giggling down just a little bit, ladies. Okay, so we're gonna add weight when we go down. So just pretty much like putting an oval within an oval. And again, if you want to do the dot technique, that's totally fine. Is it me or is this the best letter I've drawn this entire time? The dot technique, guys, the dot technique. Awesome. All right, I'm gonna get in perfection mode a little bit now. Great. Yeah, when you first start out, it's really helpful to use either gridded paper or dotted paper, so that way you just don't have to bust out a ruler every time you want to do a quick sketch. It's definitely helpful. But towards the end, it gets kind of expensive, and I like to use just run-of-the-mill printer paper for all of my resources, because it's really important that you guys redraw your pieces over and over again. Like, I never want you guys to be like, 15 minutes, I did an entire hand lettering piece. Like, don't post that. It's not going to come out good. Not calligraphy, guys. It's totally fine to draw it. Use tracing paper. You guys can either actually use tracing paper, you can use a light pad, which is my personal favorite tool, or if you don't have either of those things, you can use a window. So just take a normal window, take a piece of tape the 2 pieces together, put on the window, trace it over. For every single process I've done for a hand lettering piece, I've always redrawn my piece at least 6 times. And that's just pencil, that's not even ink. And then we go into ink, and then we go into Photoshop, and then we go into Illustrator. Typically a piece, standard, usually takes me about 30 or 40 hours. And that has nothing to do with how many words. I've spent that much time on 4 letters. It really all just depends on like where you feel like it's at a good spot. Because there's just because especially if it's only 4 letters, I feel like the less words there are, you have less to distract you. So you really have to make sure those letters are on point, especially if it's for a logo. All right, so let's do it again. You guys can kind of guess where this is going. I'm gonna make this a little bit more oval, this guy. And for the O, it's really just like when you go above and below the baseline, just try to go on top of your grid instead of within the confinements of it. That'll keep it a little bit more balanced. Because I'm gonna wake on tab, I can't traditionally always go towards me, but I'm trying. Okay, now same thing, dot method. Remember, thin and thick ratio. So this is gonna be thinner on the top and bottom, and then just a tad thicker as he goes down. Now, why we think the thin and thin ratio is just so important for the letter O is it just so easily can look drunk and messed up and topple over. Yes, you could technically fix it in Photoshop and turn it, but the more work you guys can do with a pen and paper, the less work you can do in Photoshop, because I want you to be skilled craftsmen. I don't want you to be designers, I want you to be artists. Yeah, we're bringing the artists back, guys. Sorry. All right, and then S, oh God. Can we just do another one of these real quick? I'm doing it, you can do it, I don't care, I'm doing it. Psych myself up. Okay, let's do this. All right, so there's two different styles of S's. You guys can either A, have the first bowl be the exact same height as the bottom bowl. That's totally fine. Or if you want, again, a more classic look, the top bowl would be a little bit similar to the B. So where the top bowl of the S would be a little bit, just a tad less height, and then a really big bottom. So it's like a big bottom girl S. And so again, a little bit above and below the baseline. Anything that's got a curve in the top and bottom, always do that. So I'm going to do a fat bottom girl S. Yes. Okay, some notes. This first stem is not as wide as this. And this downward point isn't as wide as this. This is really important so that way your S, again, doesn't look like it's drunk and doesn't look like it's toppling over. Those are pretty much the only rules. Now, same thing with the letter C. You can actually draw a diagonal across your S. So that way these lines would be diagonal. Boom, the diagonals, guys. I'm telling you. All right, just letting you guys know. And then to add weight, we're going to use that middle downward as our middle line. So instead of just building on top of it, because if we just build on top of it, it's going to look real funky. It's going to be like this. Does that look correct? Not so much. So I'm going to go, as I go down, I'm adding the thickness. So this is technically where you should be going down, right here, not here. That's still horizontal. Then just go a little bit like halvesies and how thick you want it to be. And then as you go down, thins out like that. Same thing on the bottom. Boom. Yeah. All right. Now we're going to do a balanced S for our mono weight piece. So let's say this is our diagonal. Cool. So again, just make sure that their bowls are going out as far as they need to. Your center line should always go out further than the caps of your letters. It's a better way to put it. Okay, this is where it gets weird. So I'm going to wait until you guys are done with your skeletons. I'll just wait until everyone looks up. I want to take a sip of water. Okay, cool. We got a couple people still working. It just gets really weird. If I could just say it, I would, but it gets weird. Okay, let's do this. So again, remember that diagonal we talked about? So these should be pointed towards each other. So let's go ahead and put those guys in first. All right, and go. So put our cap. Like that, on both sides. And then we're going to repeat that same process we just did with the varied weight, and then we're going to connect it all together. So this would go a little bit like that. This is going to make your S's so much better, guys. It's the most steps out of every letter to draw. All right? And then you just cap it off and add a little bit more weight here. And then remember, these parts are thin, and the thickest part of this S should be when it goes down, and it has that really beautiful swerve. That's where it needs to be its thickest. Then just connect it. So my S is technically a little bit off. You can always, let me change my color here to show you what I did wrong. This negative space should perfectly match this negative space if you're going for the balanced S. Technically, it's like a little, for me, it's like, what, 5 pixels off, something like that?
They should be the same.
They should be the same. If you're going for the balanced S, they should be the same. Obviously, if you're going for the vintage look where it's not as big, the top bowl isn't as wide, then that doesn't even matter. But if you're going for that like perfect Helvetica, balanced, rounded look, they need to be even. And we're going to use the same technique when we talk about kerning. All right, guys, once you finish this S, we're going to take just a little bit of a breather. And if any of you guys would like me to take a look at your worksheets, I'm more than happy to do that. And I'm actually going to show the camera. And I don't know how far you can zoom because we don't have anything else, just in case there's anyone else out there that's having the same issues. Does anybody want me to look at the worksheet? OK, great. Can you just bring it up to me? I was like, awesome. Give me your Sharpie. I'm so all right. Check this out. Great. Great. OK, so one thing that she did wrong. So this K, for example, this width of the stem should be the exact same width of this stem. There shouldn't be varied weights, especially if you're going for a mono, like of just a line versus thick. Whatever weight you add to your letters needs to be consistent, or else readability becomes an issue, especially at small sizes. Another mistake that a lot of people make when they make O's is exactly what she did. You make an eyeball on the inside of your O. It actually needs to be rounded. So it will actually make it a lot easier for you instead of just taking that dot that we did for the O's and then going down and just going from. I actually want you to make an oval. So actually draw over your original line of the skeleton and make an actual oval and make sure it's not an eyeball. Just boom. You actually did really good on your S's. You like surpassed me. That took me like 2 years. Gosh darn it. So again, I think the dot technique probably would have worked better for her on the A. As you can see, it looks a little italicized. So obviously this needs to be the center point. So maybe next time, since this is a trouble area for you, maybe start at the top, or either do the dot technique and then go like this, pull towards you. So make like a little triangle pointing at you, where you're the center focus. Again, varied width. OK, and see, we were talking about how the R and the P are different. So this looks like, sorry, the R, the B's are, hold on, words. The P's and the R's are different than the B's. So right now, this is the perfect first bowl for a B, but it's a little bit too snug for the letter R or the letter P for that matter. So you just need to go a little bit lower on that one. But other than that, you did a great job. And I was going to draw on it, and I was like, I'm just going to point to it. Catch. Anybody else? Oh, I'm sorry. I suck. I don't do sports, guys. Here, you want to walk it over to me? So I'm not like, ugh. Mm-hmm. So we're just going to do hers, and then we're going to move on. If I fell off the stage, that would be amazing. OK. Oh, great. So she actually played with the downward stem for it to look a little bit more vintage. Love that. OK, so both your B's are the incorrect way. So the thing I told you not to do, this stem they need to meet. They need to like get married right here. Right now they're divorced. They need to be married. Again, eyeballs in the O's. And then on your S's, your brain wants to do this exact same thing you did, where you just went boop, boop. You really have to use that skeleton as your center line and then build both on the top of it and the bottom of it. Instead of just adding weight to the left and then the right side, it's really more of a center line than it is the other ways we're doing the letters. Awesome. Was that helpful for anybody, what I just said? Great. Here, honey, thank you. Ooh. I'm gonna make paper airplanes. Get out of my brain. All right, guys. Now we're gonna go a little bit more into lecture mode. So you put your pencils down, unless you just want to doodle away. I personally can listen better when I'm doodling. Got in trouble a lot in high school for it. All right, so let's talk about compositions for a second. So for this design thing, I actually am going to send you a link. It's at the bottom of the tutorial, which is down. But if you just Google 100 design quotes, if you guys can't think of your own quotes, there's a plethora of amazing quotes on there. Or if you want to just make something for yourself, your mom, your boyfriend, whatever, great. Just make sure that it's in a sans serif only style. It's type focused. And let's do less than 4 words, because the deadline for this design project is Monday. So for me, that's a tight deadline, but you guys know what hard work is, right? You go here. I remember. So let's first talk about visual hierarchy. Now, before you start thumbnails or anything on your piece, first and foremost, I want you just handwriting, write out the quote. Whatever the quote is, just write it out. So the example we're going to use is, I actually did this piece for AIGA. It should be featured on their blog very soon. Don't tell them I told you. So, no, they know. I'm just kidding. That would be bad. So typography at its best is a visual form of language linking timelessness and time. Now, I do shorten this quote later on, but it's really important to just underline what words you want to be visually bigger, bolder, more decorative, or actually physically bigger, so that way it gives more meaning to the piece and more emphasis instead of all the letters and all the words just being the exact same width, the exact same height. Like, we're not using typography, we're hand lettering this, so let's make it a little bit more special. So there's 2 kinds of visual hierarchy. We can just do straight up, I'm highlighting this one word, and then all the other words are smaller, or we can do an order, almost like headings for a website. We have our H1s, our H2s, our heading 2s, our heading 3s, same thing. So just, if you guys, let's just say, I love hand lettering. Go ahead and write that for me. I'm making this up. Now, in this quote, you guys can just scream or whatever. What do you think is the most important word in that sentence? Love. Exactly. So that means that you would underline once the word love. So that's like a little note to you. I'm going to emphasize this word. Now, what would you think would be the second most important word in that sentence? Yeah. So in that point, you can either have hand lettering or maybe just hand, because it's handmade, or maybe just lettering, depending on your preference. And so that word would be what we would call an H2. So it would be not as bold as the word love, but still a little bit bigger than I, for example. All right, so now we're going to talk about thumbnails. Now, something really, really, really important for thumbnails, don't press hard with your pencil, guys. I know it's a knee-jerk reaction when you're starting something brand new, but try not to. It's going to hurt your hand. You're gonna waste a lot of paper because the harder you press, the harder it is to erase. So just try to go as lightly as possible, like you're almost going to break the paper. Because I want you to be able to draw over it like in layers in Photoshop, just like gets darker and darker as you get more concentrated and focused on the idea that you want to do. Now, when we're doing thumbnails, we're not going to add style. We're not going to add weight. We're only going to do the skeleton, because right now we're just trying to figure out composition. So for me personally, I do about 20 to 50 thumbnails for every piece that I do. And we're going to talk about a little bit of inspiration and how it can kind of drain your creativity. Don't ever, 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 ever go to Pinterest or Instagram before you start thumbnails. Don't do it. You're going to copy people. You're not going to be, it's going to be less original. Don't let inspiration fuel your designs. Let your creativity fuel it. So before you even look at any sort of reference, just use your own brain, guys. There's so much good stuff in there. Just draw it out, whatever you think with the visual hierarchy that we talked about, and just draw what I like to call a box. So let's say we're doing an 18 by 24 poster, right? So we're going to want to do this kind of orientation for our artboard. Just something simple, just a rectangle, going vertical. So let's draw that container. And we're going to let's use the example, I love hand lettering, because I mean, who doesn't love hand lettering, right? That's why you're here. So in that box, just try to write, and using the visual hierarchy that we talked about, just simply write it out. Just normal handwriting. Keep in mind all capital letters, sans serif, so no feet at the end of our letters. Just do it. Fill in the box. Even if you have negative space, like let's say you do the I in the center, it's cool. Negative space is great. I, and then love would be huge, right? More than likely. And let's say we emphasize the word lettering, just for this example. And then hand, let's make it tiny. And try with like a center focus. So just get out of left justified, right justified, and just stay in the center. Now, I'm purposefully not going to do this on my Wacom tablet because I want you guys to just go with it. And if you guys want to use this quote as your piece, that's fine too. I will judge it, and whoever has the best I love hand lettering will win, I guess. So go ahead and write it out. Now, you have your basic container. Now, do that a few more times, and just experiment with it. Maybe like the I is left justified instead of center justified. Now try to get a little bit more creative with it. And again, we're just doing straight lines. We're not going to play with our containers yet, just whatever. And at this point, we can play with a little bit of the width of our letters. So you can do like, oh, what if I love hand lettering was all condensed and it was really skinny? Or maybe the word love would be really wide, right? And then maybe hand would be condensed. So we're just going to play with weight. I'm going fast on purpose. At this point of the process, it's really less about you physically drawing on paper and just more about, oh, that's how you do that. Good to know. Okay, so now we're going to go into creating containers. And to give you an idea, this first time that you draw this should not look good. I repeat, it should not look good. Look at this. That is all kinds of messed up. I go outside my container. Sometimes I misspell things. At this point, I was like, you know what? I'm going to get rid of the word in language. So I just am like, okay, I like typography at its best is a visual form linking timelessness in time. I like that better. And also, it's technically not copyrighted now because someone else said it. Money in the bank. Okay, so now we're going to play with containers. So just like how I started, thumbnails. Again, let's start. I don't know how big you guys are going at this point. If you didn't bring sketchbooks, you could just turn over the worksheets and just work on the back. I want your thumbnails to be like this big. Because the smaller they are, the less you care. The bigger they are, the more detailed you get. You just can't help it. So if you just stay like 3 inches by 3 inches, somewhere that's at least less than 5 inches, you'll be in a good place. So containers are a really good way to kind of make lettering unique. This is what makes it so different from typography. Yes, there's the warp tool. Yes, there's the arch tool. But there's not going to be those beautiful little inconsistencies that makes lettering so attractive. So we can do tons of things. We can start to put our letters in arches. A lot of hand lettering artists always like to make the first word an arch, if it's a long word. Like if you look at my back of my thumbnails, the first thing I do is make typography on an arch, because it's really nice visual balance. So we have arches. We can skew our letters and have it go across. There's so many things we can start to, and I'll actually draw this just so you guys can get a better idea, just in case this isn't doing it for you. So let's draw a few containers. This isn't my presentation, I'm just winging it. So I'm just going to draw boxes. So don't worry necessarily to just draw the letters, draw the containers first. So the first thumbnails we did were all pretty much like this, right? And then we can start to play. You can do arches. Both, of course, this way and that way. You can have them skewed, like this. Maybe we want to have a wave, so we actually would be like this. And then, of course, in my example, we have a diagonal. And pretty much anything you can think of. I think in my piece, I actually use a physical banner. So like, oh, this would be a perfect banner. Let me just add some little dudes. Boom, banner. Now, these are really important, especially if, like, let's say you want to do illustration. Something really popular in hand lettering right now is like, let's say, time is of the essence is the quote, and they want to put it in the shape of a clock, right? Circle. And then they would do like an alarm clock style for like a silhouette and then fit their lettering inside. So that's also a really creative way to do lettering as well, without just, well, keeping it simple and not really knowing how to draw at that point. You're just drawing a circle and a little couple spokes, right? So just play with those containers. I'll give you guys a few minutes. So we're going to go ahead and piece your same piece. Again, thumbnails. Play with the containers, first containers, and then just simply write out your words. I love hand lettering, or I love mom. I do love you, mom. And just whatever comes to your mind, just to kind of practice and kind of get used to this idea, this process of developing a hand letter quote. Okay. You guys learning stuff? Is this good? Awesome. Now, as you guys continue to draw your pieces, a big thing that's going to happen is you're going to break that container. It's going to happen. Visual form is obviously not in that box. Now this is why I talk about drawing and redrawing your letters several times. Because again, if I would have just gone with this, there's no way my client would have paid for this. So a good way to kind of help your kerning and your spacing, if you're trying to go within the container, is you see this blue line above visual form, just make the height of your container smaller, and then you'll have more room for your word. So if you keep noticing, you keep breaking outside the box, just shorten that container more and more. That just means that container is just a little bit too tall. Okay, so only after you've been doing the thumbnails, I want 20 thumbnails, ideally 20, for any project you do. For this quote we're going to work on, if you only can do 5, you only have 10 for 10, awesome. But if you want to be a professional and you really want it to be as good as it can be, I really do recommend 20. We're going to kill a lot of trees, but please recycle, guys. Okay, so only when you have your letters figured out, it doesn't have to be perfect. They can still be breaking outside the containers. That's totally fine. But only then, when you have the skeletons figured in Kita, is when you start to add weight and style. So this is when we start to add, whether or not we're going to use bold, or we're going to stay thin, or maybe you're just going to use the skeleton of your letters. That's fine too. Are you going to use varied width? Are you going to use mono weight like we showed you earlier? Some things to think about, and also keep visual hierarchy in mind, because visual hierarchy isn't just about the size, it's about the style. So the word love, we could have made that bolder simply by just making it thicker or bigger. Or we could just we're going to add decorative elements to it. Maybe there's an illustration. Maybe the word love has a heart in it. Just whatever way you can think of that could attract attract your eye to that piece, that word first, is great. So there's a bunch of different options. So at this point, I'm starting to key in my words. I'm going rough, I'm going dirty. Again, light. This piece was actually super light, so I had to rack up my levels here in Photoshop just so you guys could see it. And then again, I already touched on this, redraw your work several times. I'm telling you guys, this window, you guys have so much sunlight here in Florida, use it. I definitely do recommend a light pad. They range anywhere from $20 to $100, depending on how fancy you want to get. You don't need wireless, that's a waste of money. It's a computer, they're amazing. Usually the light pads that you can adjust the layer of light that shows through your paper is really helpful. So that way, if you guys start down the line getting charcoal paper or colored paper for your pieces, you can actually still see through it. Okay, yeah. I was like, what does that word mean? Okay. So what I mean by no decorations yet is no swirls, no supporting elements, no serifs, no inline strokes, just straight up weight. We're not there yet. All right, I'm really excited to show you guys this. When I learned this, again, mind blown. All right, so final touches. This is everything you would think it would be. It would be, then we would add decorations. We would look at kerning specifically. We would look at line height. We would make sure that the negative space around our letters is consistent. So like if we're just going with a straight up stacked lettering, the space between I and love and my hand lettering needs to be consistent. You don't want like a huge gap between I and love and then a smaller gap. So that's really important to keep in mind. Now, the trick to kerning. So I draw this here, just similar how we did, I think it was the O? No, it was the S's, where I saw to see if those two bodies of the container were equal. Just physically imagine that the space between your letters is like a body of water. Because there's no exact science to kerning. Even professional fonts that cost hundreds of dollars aren't perfectly kerned. It's impossible. There's no, every letter is 3 pixels away from the other one. It's just not, that's not how letters work. An O is just, if it's next to, let's say, an I, is going to look like a lot more space than an I next to another I, because they're both diagonal and one leaves extra space. So just imagine volumes of water. So let's go ahead and just draw the word love. And again, we're just going to do skeletons just for a quick trial for you guys. And if anyone run out of paper, please feel free to be like, I need paper. Does anyone else have paper? Because I'm seeing some people like, I'm running out of room on this worksheet, Dina. So after you draw those 4 characters, look at the spacing. It might look fine, especially because you're concentrating on it right now, but just do me a favor, start drawing those containers of water in between the letters. It doesn't have to be perfect. As you can see in the word best, I really just kind of rough it in there. Now, as you can tell, optically, I wouldn't maybe have not noticed that the space between my B and my E were way smaller than the rest of the letters. But once I put the containers in, it's a good way to visualize, okay, error, warning, warning, Will Robinson, there is a problem. And that is just not a good enough space. So next time I would trace it, this is the trick that I like to do. So instead of taping your pieces of paper together, it's kind of hard to illustrate without having the pieces of paper. So let's say your bottom piece is obviously your first composition, and your second piece is when you're redrawing it, and you're trying to do your kerning. Simply just move your top piece of paper a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right to fix your kerning instead of having to manually redraw your letters. Now, at this point, if things are breaking outside the container, that's totally fine. That's what Photoshop is for. So if you guys follow a lot of hand lettering artists, either on Instagram or Pinterest, you'll notice that they make little notes. When they redraw their work several times, when they draw their work several times, they'll be like, hey, this needs to be moved here. This kerning, this O isn't round enough. Or the spacing is uneven. Or this K, for example, the weight is inconsistent. My downward lines aren't thicker than my horizontal lines. And physically, like, I always have a red pen on hand where I actually just, whatever beautiful piece of artwork, don't be afraid to just write errors all over it. It's like in high school when your teacher gives you back your paper, and there's all these scribbles and lines, and hopefully there's not an F at the top of it. And it's the same thing. You're just correcting your own work. This is mostly just taking mental notes, because when you get really into a piece, you get something and you just get really into it and focus, and you can miss the little details. As I'm sure most of you know, being in DAD, right, is if you stare at anything too long, you start to miss stuff all the time. So this is where breaks are really important. Again, I don't expect you guys to do an entire lettering piece in one day, or 15 minutes. If you want to take a Netflix and chill break, or if you want to take a nap, or whatever, to come back to your piece with new eyes. All right. What? Okay, so now we're going to talk about ink. Now, I think you guys all have Sharpies, right? All right. I love Sharpies. A lot of hand lettering artists will be like, buy the latest and greatest tools that are $30. No. Sharpies are great. They're like $1. They're super cheap. They're amazing. I like Sharpies because they have extra bleed, which actually I think gives pieces, especially with hand lettering, a little bit more of like an authentic, kind of almost grungy feel. But if you do want smoother lines, I would recommend a Micron pen. And also, they make no-bleed Sharpies now. I saw them at Target, and I kind of made like a woo sound in Target and embarrassed myself. I was like, oh my God, no-bleed Sharpies? Dream come true. Okay, so for this tutorial moving forward, I will want you guys to actually fill in your lettering. So whatever quote you guys want to do, again, if you don't have time between today and tomorrow to do a full-on hand-lettered piece, that's totally fine. I'm going to give you guys files of this piece for you to work on in Photoshop and Illustrator so you can still learn the techniques. But hey, if there's a couple overachievers in the house, which I hope there are, please feel free to make your own quotes. And if you guys do want to enter the design contest, it's going to take a little elbow grease. When you add ink to your pieces, you can really see mistakes that you just didn't see before. A lot of hand lettering artists will just simply draw the outside shape of their letters, and they'll go into Photoshop and then have so much stuff to do, either with their Wacom tablet or straight out just using the trackpad, which takes forever. So again, as much work as you guys can do beforehand would be awesome. If you don't want to waste that much ink, because inking something does take a long time, just fill it in with your pencil. And even just like a squiggle line is going to show you so much more information than just simply drawing the outside of your letters. almost done, guys. Okay. So when we are inking this piece, and if you guys do decide to ink it, please start on a fresh piece of paper. Okay? So if you're going to use the window technique, well, it's sunny for like another hour, or tomorrow, or if you have a friend who has a light pad, maybe there's a light pad you guys can use here at Full Sail. I always say, whatever your final pencil sketch is, go ahead and take a fresh piece of paper and then redraw your lines. Because all of, again, gobbledygook is going to recognize the scan no matter how much you erase it, and it's going to get really fuzzy, and you're not going to get the crisp lines that I want you guys to be able to have in your own compositions. And these are a bunch of other things that I'm just thinking off the top of my head that just aren't in this presentation. So when we're talking about, let's say, sharpieing, and I'll have you guys actually do this. So go ahead and just draw the letter A. So draw your skeleton, and we're going to do mono width. So we're actually going to add thickness, and I'm not going to show you. I want you to remember. So if you want to reference back your original A, mono width. Only in pencil, and then we're going to ink it together. Yeah, I was like, I should probably preface that. Sorry. So once you start to add weight to your piece, go ahead and look up and let me know when you guys are done with the pencil. Just so you make sure we're all on the same pace. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. This is just for an example. Yeah? If you don't have gridded paper, you probably should go ahead and use a ruler to at least have your baseline and your cap height in there. Obviously, if it's on an arch, you can use a compass. I personally have one, and I've never used it. I just do this. Or like a swirl, or if you want it on a flag, rulers won't really help you. But again, you could just straight up go for it, but it would save you a lot of time to use a ruler, yeah. Since there's a couple people that are working, does anyone else have a quick question about anything? All right, guys, so when we ink our piece, keep in mind, again, not like calligraphy, we draw the letter A. So we went ahead and did our skeleton, right? We added our body. Now when we're inking this, do not just draw the outside of your letters. I don't want to see you guys being like, this is my A, done. No, follow through. It's going to make your A's crisper. It's going to make it cleaner, straighter, and more perfect. So please try to avoid just drawing. You did all that beautiful work in pencil. Don't ruin it by screwing it up in pen. So that's a little trick too. Now, oops. So when you go ahead and draw the letter A, I'm trying to think of a good example. So again, always drawing towards you. And now something that kind of happens when you lift up the pen, it makes a little pool of ink. And so if you want to add a follow-through, always go, like, let's say, let me try to think of an example. So this is the top apex of our A. We go down, pick up our pen. Instead of just going exactly where that dot is and then doing that straight line, you're just going to make that pool of ink bigger. So instead, actually go a little bit. So this is the corner of our A. Instead of just being dun, and then up, and then down, I want you to actually go dun, pick up, and then go a little bit above, dun, down. Because you're actually going to smooth out that pool of ink and give yourself a little bit less editing in Photoshop. That's something I literally just discovered like 4 weeks ago. I was like, holy crap, that's amazing. All right, guys, so we're reaching towards the end. I think we have the room for a little bit longer. Am I right on that one? Because I think we're right on the, yeah? Okay, so we are going to be here hanging out. We have some extra faculty members. I want you guys to start those hand letter pieces that we talked about. I'm going to walk around. If you guys, obviously, we're going to have Q&A after I'm done doing my spiel. And we're going to walk around and just kind of make sure, do like a little bit of lab time. Because I know there's a lot of information I just spewed at you, and when the website's not crashed, you can go reference it. It uncrashed? Okay, cool. It's just people being like, I don't want to be on this website anymore. Okay, so I'm really excited to tell you guys that I am working on a hand lettering course that's free. It's completely 100% free. So there's two versions of this book. We have an ebook version where you guys can actually print out all of the templates. Now, it's not going to be the graded paper that you guys have now. It's actually going to show you how to build your letters. Sans serif, serif, slab serif, cursive, black letter. Every single style that you can think of is going to be in this workbook for free.
Oh my God.
So awesome. So the ebook version is completely 100% free, but if you want to support me and have a more finite version, there is going to be a printed version available for about $29.99. And if you guys signed up to get an example of this presentation, you are already signed up to find more out about that. Or you guys can just follow me on Twitter. My tag everywhere is Lettershop. Again, that's 2 P's and an E, the cool way. And also, I think I mentioned this for a minute, I am on Twitch. I'm obsessed with Twitch. Twitch is amazing. I do stream 3 to 5 times a week. I really hope to see you guys in the chat. Please make an account. Please hang out, ask me questions. Let's be friends in real life, not just virtually. I'm here for questions. I'm really approachable. I'm really here for you. I want to share as much knowledge as I can with you, and I really just want to hang out. So I hope you guys can hang out. This entire week, obviously, I won't be streaming, but starting Tuesday, which we have Tater Tuesdays, me and my best friend actually stream and hang out, and he's a comedian, so he's pretty funny. Slight inappropriate. We eat taters and drink beer, and we hang out, and I show you guys how to do some cool lettering stuff. And then on Sundays is tutorial day, where we also do critiques. So I think it's like for $2 donations, I go ahead and I check out anything you want, whether if it's your lettering, if it's your website, if you need help with social media. I do a lot more than just letters. I do run a successful business, and I'm happy to share everything I know with you. All right, guys, now it's homework time. All right, so we're going to do a little bit of Q&A, and then we're going to go into the workshop, where we're going to walk around and check you guys out. And then on the bottom of this thing is the 100 quotes that I suggested. If you can't think of a quote, you want it to stay design specific. I think this would be an insanely amazing piece to put in your portfolios. I really hope that you include it and you add hand lettering to a skill set in addition to graphic design or motion graphics or whatever you guys decided to go to. And again, keep in mind that I want this piece to be type-focused. I want it to be only in sans serif styles. Anything that breaks these rules, I'm not even going to look at. Follow instructions, it's important. No supporting illustrations and no overly decorative embellishments. A couple swirls are fine. If you want to do an inline stroke with your letters, that's great. I don't want to see flowers. I don't want to see pictures of animals, just letters, because I really want your letters to be amazing, so then you can move forward and constantly improve your lettering. And now, we're ready for Q&A. Do we have any questions at all? I feel like I talked so much. Yeah.
If we do decide to do
Oh, hold on. She's got a microphone. Let's make this legit. No, come on. It might help other people.
a question,
I don't think it's on.
It doesn't matter.
I mean, what's a lecture without technical difficulties, right?
Yeah.
if we do
The design. If we do the design contest, how do we turn it in?
You can send it to Dina@lettershop.com, or you can mention me on Twitter. I'm fine with either. And I think originally I have in here Friday, but I'm going to give you guys until Monday. I think a weekend is important for this kind of thing if you guys want to make it a little bit more special. I'll wait until she walks over to you, and then we'll do this properly.
Okay, hi.
Hey.
So I'm the type of person who like gets into like slumps all the time. Like, what do you do when you're like stuck? Because that's a problem I have a lot.
Get out of the house.
Get out of the house.
Get out of the house. So there's this thing called creative flow, right? And I think we've all experienced this as an artist, as a designer, when you're sitting in front of the computer and time, hours feels like minutes. And it just, time moves more slowly, and you just get really into what you're doing. There are ways to trigger creative flow in your brain, especially when you're having a gap of inspiration. Now, ways to trigger this is exercise. You do little hand stretches, right? Or just jog in place, whatever you do to get the blood flowing, because more blood flowing, more blood to your brain, more ideas. Go for a walk is really helpful, I found. Going to a local coffee shop, go to Starbucks or maybe a little bit more mom and pop. And just really look at real things for inspiration instead of just looking digitally. And also, please do not spend more than 20 minutes ever looking at inspiration, because you'll be all excited to work on a project, and then by the time you're ready to do it, it's been 2 hours and you've lost your energy because you were too busy liking things on Pinterest. So just use it to kind of launch it. And then, and now I'm going to share this technique too because it's really fun. So let's say there's this amazing letter shop piece. You're like, Dina, you rocked that poster so good. I want to copy it, but don't do that. So a good way to kind of use reference without copying is A, look at the reference, trace it, right? Straight up, you guys have my full permission to trace my work. Don't post it, but for practice, you're more than welcome. Then look at it and then draw it again without tracing. Then take a breather. Come back the next day and draw it from memory. There's no way that your piece, even if you referenced it the day before, is going to look like my piece. That's the great thing about the human hand. Everything's going to be a little bit different. So, a little tidbit. Next question.
What was the size format on the poster?
It's 18 by 24. And because we are going to vectorize this piece, you guys can totally scan in your artwork on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. Oh, and something I totally forgot to mention, thank you so much for asking me that question. We do have scanners available, I think, I was told. Awesome. So if you guys want to work on your pencil pieces and ink pieces here, the scanners will both be here for today's workshop and then here for tomorrow's workshop. So you do need to make sure that your pieces are scanned in to your computer, so bring your laptop for tomorrow so we can digitalize it. Or you'll have to use my asset so we can kind of follow along with the tutorial.
Hello?
Hi.
Okay. I sound weird. Anyways, when you transfer your letters into Illustrator, do you use like the ellipse tool to make your O's perfect, or you just trace it with the pen tool? Like, how would you transfer it?
It really depends on what your goal is. If you want it to be like a font, or if you want it to be perfect, then you could use a little bit of both. You can create lettering with shapes. You can recreate with the pen tool. What we're going to go over for tomorrow is creating what I like to call organic textures and organic lettering using live trace. There is a way to use live trace where it doesn't look weird and actually looks hand-drawn and doesn't overly smooth your words, because I like a handmade aesthetic with my words, and I hope you guys do too, because that's what we're doing tomorrow. But yeah, and I think we're 2 weeks from now, I'm releasing a tutorial on how to use the pen tool to create your vectors if you want that clean look.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, last question.
Hi. Are we allowed to do like 3 words, or do you want a minimum of 4?
I mean, it's really like how much time you want to put in it. If you guys seriously want to do like a 10-word quote, go for it. But I would probably recommend let's say less than 5 words. I think that's doable. If there's like a quote and it's like 6 words that you want to do, don't worry about it. It's totally fine. All right, guys. So we didn't have as much time as I thought, and I talked a lot. Sorry about that. So we only have about, I think, 15, 20 minutes to do this lab. So I'm going to go around as many people as I can. And today I am going to be on my computer. So if you guys do want to send me some preliminary sketches, if you get it in before 9 p.m. this time, I will respond by tomorrow morning. Do not send me sketches at like 3 in the morning. I'm not going to respond. And I will give you a little bit of a critique. I'm not going to hold your hand. I just want to be able to help you more than hinder your progress. And all right, let's do a tutorial. Let's walk around. Fellow instructors, if anyone has a question, please raise your hand if you want someone to get a critique on your work. And again, let's just get our compositions down since we don't have a whole lot of time. Let's do the skeletons of our words first and at least get a composition down before we leave. So I want you guys, before we leave this workshop, to get the thumbnail that you're going to move forward with. So don't get too crazy with bodies and weights because we don't have enough time, sorry. But at least we can make sure that the composition you're going for is just going to be rock star and stellar.